Hi, and good morning from a really swanky hotel room here in Montreal. Today, finally, it's Air Canada's turn to inaugurate their first ever service on the proudly Canadian-made Airbus A220-300, or some of us still calls it the CS300.
Our flight this morning will be the first ever service of this route on an Airbus A220. Departing from Montreal, we'll cross over 5 provinces and 3 time zones to land in Calgary. From one frigid city to another, this flight will take us 5 hours over 1,870 miles.
For those of you who are wondering, this is the Four Seasons Montreal, a fantastic hotel both in terms of price and pretty much everything else.
Now, some of you viewers have expressed an interest in wanting me to do hotel reviews. I'm not opposed to the idea, but I'm thinking of making another channel just for that. If you have any thoughts on the subject, please leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to ignore you.
Alright, I'm gonna put this camera away now, let's get going.
Named after our politically underwhelming Prime Minister's late father, Pierre-Elliott Trudeau International Airport is located just south of the city of Montreal. Despite having a sophisticated metro system, Montreal's network doesn't actually reach the airport. Instead, the most convenient way to get to and from the airport would be by car. On a related note, not far towards the northwest of the city is Mirabel International Airport, home of Bombardier's aeronautical division and manufacturing, where the plane we're about to fly on today was made and test flown just weeks before. Now, back to our trip. YUL, as it's abbreviated, is very straightforward, having only one main terminal building split into 3 sections: domestic, international, and transborder. As of today, the United States has yet to invade Calgary for its oil wealth, so the city remains part of Canada and thus will be headed to the domestic section. In the terminal, Air Canada's check-in counters are on the far right. Here, you'll find the kiosks and counters for the casual flyers. If you're one of these filthy casuals, be sure to get here early as things do pick up after 6 a.m. for the morning rush. Behind this is the priority area for the seasoned veterans, what they call elites and super elites, and Star Alliance gold holders, and pretty much everyone and anyone with a credit card. And because of how many people have these credit cards, this area too tends to get a little busy during the morning pickup. But it's only 5:30 right now, so I was done in no time. Conveniently, there is also a security point right next to here, so within 5 minutes, I was airside. I'm not going to go to the lounge today as it's always packed in the mornings and I won't be able to get any usable footage. I covered the AC lounge experience in a few of my other videos, I'll link them below. Instead, we'll head straight to the gate as I'm told there will be myriad festivities waiting for us. And sure enough, when I got there, I found a media backdrop. There were also refreshments and cupcakes adorned with the logos of the corporate stakeholders of today's event. But above all else, there was our plane. Some say that she looks like a baby Dreamliner, and while I see the resemblance, I like to think that it has its own distinct image. This aircraft in particular is the first of 45 set to join Air Canada's fleet, with 30 more options should AC deem it prudent. The registration CTAC-GROV is not by chance. It's meant as a subtle nod to the CEO of Air Canada for the last 10 years, Calin Rovinescu, for helping Canada's flag carrier weather the tumultuous times after the late 2000s. So it's almost poetic that today the C-Series program crosses paths with Air Canada, as both of the giant Canadian companies finished recovering from a turbulent past. And at this point, the AC media team invited a few people to board the empty plane in order to capture some footage. If you're wondering as to how I managed to be invited, well, the truth is, I bribed them. I offered an undisclosed member of the Air Canada staff 2 1-liter jugs of unfiltered maple syrup, and the rest was history. Anywho, the first thing I thought when I stepped aboard this beautiful brand new plane was, wow, I really have to go pee. So I made a beeline for the bathroom. Don't worry, I still managed to get some footage, which I'll add into the video later on. For now, let's go back to the gate, where a gentleman gave a speech in French.
Bienvenue à tous ce matin, un moment mémorable.
Didn't get in English.
For our newest member on our fleet.
And then some idiot took the stage, hopelessly lost. Afterwards, they cut a ribbon that wasn't tied to anything with a comically large pair of scissors, and then began the boarding process. There were a few people who were fighting to board first, but honestly I couldn't care less, so I waited my turn. And as I walked onto the jet bridge, I was given this piece of fabric. Sweet. Anyways, before letting me on board the aircraft, the Executive Vice President and CCO of Air Canada insisted that I have my photo taken, only so that she could photobomb me. I'm not sure how to feel about this. No, but in all seriousness, the pre-flight activities were a lot of fun, and I got to see a lot of familiar faces and get acquainted with new ones. And as I stepped on board the plane, I was surprised to have recognized yet another familiar face, the cabin manager.
Hello, ma'am. I think I remember you. I had you as my crew before from on the Dreamliner flight to Vancouver. Yeah, from here.
After a little chit-chat, she politely asked me which seat I was in and was a little surprised when I told her 1A. These new seats are a tailored variant of the Collins Aerospace MiQ business class product. Unmistakably Air Canada, the understated color palette calmly asserts sophistication and class without the conspicuous bombacity employed by all too many other airlines. I especially like how the seat back is made from fabric instead of leather, not sacrificing comfort for appearance. And before I get too carried away with my monologue, let's do a comprehensive seat tour. The highlight of the seat would have to be the new IFE system, which I'll cover in detail later. Below this is a small shelf, very handy for storing small personal items such as your phone. Underneath this is the literature pocket. As I'm sure some of you super nerds are out there, I'll show you the safety card later. In the middle between the two seats, you'll find a small tray for drinks and whatnot, and a raisable armrest. It opens up to reveal a small storage nook handy for a laptop or a tablet as it's padded on the bottom. Also hidden in here is a 3.5mm headphone jack, a USB Type-A charging port, and a universal power outlet. On the subject of things that are hidden away, there is an extendable drink holding platform thing that extends off the end of the armrest. Yeah. And down here you'll find two metal switches that control the leg rest and the recline. This leg rest makes quite a considerable difference in terms of comfort as it takes a load off of both your feet and legs. Moving on to the outboard side, you'll find another leather padded armrest which opens up to reveal the tray table which can be deployed via this latch. It glides out smoothly and can be folded open to extend its surface area. You can adjust how close you want it, and it's relatively sturdy. There is a little bit of play. Overall, it's not the largest, but it gets the job done. And it's one of the easier ones to put away without losing a finger. The headrest is made from a soft leather, and you can both adjust the sides and move the whole thing up and down. As for invading the personal space of the person behind you, well...
Oh,
Wow.
that's a lot of personal space I'm taking from you.
That's a little too much. No.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good though.
Now, let's have a look at a non-bulkhead seat. Which one to choose? Yeah, alright. 3C, this one works just fine. There are a few minor differences, one being the addition of a small hook for your coat, and a footrest that comes down from the seat in front of you in addition to the leg rest. I didn't manage to film this, but on all aisle seats, the aisle side armrest lowers so that you can get out of your seat when the tray table is deployed. Every seat also has an individual dome light and air nozzle. And the windows are incredibly generous. They're still slightly smaller than the Dreamliner windows, but much larger than every other plane's. Anyways, by the time I was done flipping through my seat, we had finished boarding and were ready to start pushing back. Later on in the flight, Alvin from OneMoreWeekToGo and I switched seats, so I'll get to check out economy too. But for now, let's appreciate how loud and clear the PA system is in this aircraft.
First Airbus A220. Built in Canada right up the highway in Mirabel. Myself and Daniel Dion are honored to have you on board the latest addition to our fleet.
After pushing back, it's a quick ride over to the de-icing facility so that a guy can spray his hot foamy juices all over us. Well, now that I've successfully guaranteed my own demonetization, let's cut to the takeoff footage.
Here, the ocean is near, where you dug a hole, buried my fear. We scattered like trees, sometimes in line. I'm down all the time.
When we started leveling off and the seatbelt signs were turned off, the crew immediately started preparing the breakfast service. Before takeoff, they handed out menus and took meal orders so that by the time we reached our cruising altitude, the meals would be ready. In addition to this breakfast menu, I got my hands on one with lunch and dinner options just to show you what they had. While AC does have espresso machines on their wide bodies, unfortunately on the A220 they only had drip coffee. For breakfast, all meals start off with a fruit plate with an accompanying yogurt, as well as bakery items. I went with a whole wheat bun this time. For those of you who have watched my other Air Canada videos, you'll know that I'm completely in love with this omelette and sausage staple. I can't praise it enough, you really have to give it a try if you ever get the chance. Unless if you're suffering from unmedicated atherosclerosis, pre-hypertension, hypertension, prediabetes, diabetes, coronary heart disease, strokes, and a bunch of other cardiovascular conditions. In which case, you probably shouldn't eat this. For those people and people who are health conscious in general, there is a healthy option available. And as these things go, after eating, you'll inevitably at some point end up in the bathroom. Business class has its own bathroom up here at the front of the plane, and it looks incredibly clean and modern. However, there is only one warm water setting. Also, I'm not entirely sure of the soap fixture. It doesn't quite move, so you have to look in the mirror to get the inverse image of the label. Overall, the counter looks very nice with this faux stone material. And here's the centerpiece, the toilet. It's actually surrounded by these shelves, which are kindly wrapped in this leather material. And in case you were curious, let me just open this up for you. There you go. Yeah. Oh, I can't believe some of you asked for that. And over here is the baby change station that comes down like this. I'm pretty sure this one has never been used before. On the wall you have the standard Air Canada maple leaf motif. There is no full-length mirror, but there is a coat hook. Overall, this bathroom is very spacious for a small jet, which isn't true for the bathrooms in the back, which I'll show you later. Alright, let's get out of here now. Now, at this point in the flight is when I normally do an overview of the IFE, but on this flight, I had a better idea.
So you know that purely euphoric feeling of bliss that you get when you sit down in a plane and there's no one sitting next to you and the door closes and there's still no one sitting down next to you? Well, that didn't happen today. But somehow, in a weird stroke of luck, the person sitting next to me is also the person responsible for the cabin design, the IFE, and pretty much everything else you see on this flight. And that person is now my friend, Norman. And for whatever reason employed him to do this, Norman has agreed to answer a few questions from me, so obviously his luck today is much worse than mine.
Now, Norman and I chatted about the technology on board and we got quite technical, so I won't bore you with the details. To sum it up, these Panasonic devices are a brand new product introduced on the A220s and the 737 MAXs, the latter of which are, as of the posting of this video, still on the ground, maximizing their returns. Anyways, these touchscreens in business class are 13.3 inches wide with a very comfortable viewing angle and no screen glare thanks to the matte finish. With a resolution of 1920 by 1080, they are noticeably sharper than the screens on the older systems, especially the ones on the narrow bodies. In economy, the resolution remains at 1080p with the screens slightly smaller at 10 inches. And according to Norman, the system software runs on Android.
If you think about it, hardware is always going to be obsolete, right? But with open source software like Android, it allows us to always innovate on top of the existing hardware that's there without having to swap out the monitors, which are very expensive. So I think at this point we future-proofed ourselves with the combination of what we have today and where we can get to with the software. So.
And just to drive home the point of future-proofing, both the systems in business class and economy feature both USB Type-A and USB Type-C charging ports under the screen. In terms of upcoming features, I asked Norman what we could expect.
Expect the IFE to become a connected platform.
Does that mean we'll get a browser in the IFE?
I mean, a browser probably not,
Okay.
not to the open internet, but expect features and applications that need internet to function properly. You know, they'll probably be installed. Things to deliver more news and sports and all that kind of
So
stuff.
bite-sized piece of internet delivered to your screen. Okay, makes sense. All right.
I've mentioned before in another video that I'm quite a fan of this new boxy interface, and Norman tells me that the people who designed it are the same ones who did the Hulu interface. The in-flight map utilizes FlightPath 3D, which is essentially a stripped-down version of Google Earth with the rendering of the aircraft model. Norman also tells me that multi-language support was a big goal as AC moves not only Canadians abroad, but also people abroad to Canada and wherever else they may want to go.
As a global carrier, the first thing that we took from that strategy was essentially to implement a 15-language UI that essentially allows people to feel more comfortable while being on board a North American carrier.
When it comes to the content, the selection is solid. There were about a dozen newly released films, with some that were still playing in theaters. Also available are a plethora of classic and contemporary choices to supplement. TV shows were abundant, and an all-time favorite feature of mine, box sets, whole seasons of TV shows so that you can binge your way across the globe. There's also a selection of complete HBO series, with Chernobyl remaining number 1 on my recommended list. On the flip side of entertainment is, of course, Wi-Fi. Norman told me how the A220 uses exclusively satellite infrastructure. My first thought was, does that compromise speed?
Right, so that's not the case anymore. Satellite solutions are now designed specifically for aero and mobility. You're seeing the bandwidth in that spectrum expand significantly. So, from an experiential perspective, the internet through a satellite-based solution is faster in today's market. Now, that may change, but we're not there yet.
I did connect to the internet on this flight for purely research purposes, of course. To be honest though, I didn't notice a faster connection. Wikipedia pages were pretty slow to load, and streaming YouTube videos in even the lowest of qualities was hopeless. But our flight might not have been the best control, since almost everyone on board wanted to connect, as they were given free Wi-Fi passes. For the typical experience, packages top out at $22 for the entire flight with unlimited data use. There remains no day or trip passes. Instead, the next step up is a hefty monthly subscription. Anyways, it was incredibly generous of Norman, who was working on this flight by the way, to have spent time answering my questions and having a conversation with me. Throughout much of the flight, he was happy to chat, and I could feel that he was genuinely enthusiastic that his project, this jet, was on her maiden voyage.
Okay, well, thank you so much for answering my questions. Hope I wasn't a nuisance.
No,
Thank
not
you
at all.
for your time.
All right, thank you so much.
I promised before that I show you the safety card, so here it is. After doing a little bit of research, I was surprised to find a black market for these things. I kid you not, people are actually selling these safety cards on eBay. I really don't know how to feel about this. At this point, I had completely ran out of things to do, so I thought, f it, I'll volunteer myself as tribute and downgrade to economy. I'm just kidding. I traded seats with Alvin from OneMoreWeekToGo so we could both get a glimpse of what life is like on the other side of the curtain. If you haven't seen his videos, I would highly suggest that you do. They are probably the most cinematic and beautiful flight films you'll find on the internet, much better than the garbage I produce anyways. And on the subject of garbage, let's have a closer look at the economy cabin. I can make fun of it all I like, but to be fair, on this plane, economy class is where the real difference is. With 125 seats laid out in a 2-3 configuration, there are many modern features which sets this cabin apart. Each seat is 19 inches wide, wider than what you may find on almost every other narrow body. There's only 2 seats on the port side, meaning fewer middle seats and thus fewer casualties in the war over armrests. The overhead bins are massive and can comfortably stow a full-size carry-on for every passenger, or several full-size passengers for that matter. Let me show you a few things that might help you decide as to where to sit. The standard seats offer a standard amount of legroom. I'm 181 centimeters tall, or in units my American friends will understand, a standard height human male. And the legroom was adequate. If you need more room, the preferred seats might be of preference to you. There are a few rows of these, one of which is 19, also an emergency exit row. These seats offer considerably more space, so if you're not a standard size human or would simply like more room to yourself, this is the way to go. And as an added bonus, the emergency exit rows feature this armadillo-like window shade, which is just about the coolest thing there is. On all seats you get an adjustable headrest, and the recline is more of a courtesy than anything significant. Still, it's better than nothing, which is the case for the last row, row 36, as it does not recline. Apart from the smaller screen, the IFE is pretty much the same as business class, just without all the physical buttons. There are the aforementioned USB charging ports, as well as a universal power socket just below the seats, 1 for the port side and 2 for the starboard side. Finally, there are 2 bathrooms at the very back of the plane, both of which are very small, but however compact they are, they still hold the same amenities as the one in business class. As I settled in for the hour or so until our arrival at Calgary, I had to flip through the Bistro menu, which is Air Canada's buy on board program. Don't get the poutine, it's terrible. The pizza's also pretty bad. The mac and cheese is okay. Mostly I would just go for the cold options unless there are leftover business class meals, in which case they sell them back here in the set menu. I recently flew on Air Canada Rouge and we'll go over the food experience and economy in detail in that video, but until that comes out, it's business as usual. As we start our descent into Calgary, I should mention that I was invited out by some friends from Air Canada for this trip. They gave me a ticket and told me to have fun. Fun was an understatement. I got to join in on the excitement as my neighborhood airline inaugurated a new plane, I got to sit in 1A of said plane, and most importantly, I got to meet a bunch of super friendly AC employees, plane nerds, and frequent flyers who were just as happy to be there as I was. More than anything else, the atmosphere on board was of a complete party, centered around this magnificent aircraft and those people who put their love into building her. I could feel the pride, the zeal, and the enthusiasm of everyone on board.
So they can taxi out quicker and turn around. It's crazy.
Air Canada is not the first airline to welcome the C-Series into its fleet, but it is the first one that's Canadian. With 44 more siblings set to join her, our skies will soon be home to a flock of homegrown, fresh from farm to table, proudly Canadian-built airliners, taking people across the country, the continent, and perhaps in the future, the ocean, as her range surpasses anything else in her class. I was incredibly fortunate, grateful, and happy to have been able to share this flight with you, and I hope it was as entertaining for you to watch as it was for me to experience. I'll see some of you in the comments below, but otherwise, until the next time, safe travels.